What's up, amigos? Commander Jaime here today. We're going to go over an Aqua Premium deck profile that actually has some Stoicheia support in it. And this one's going to be a little bit different. It's going to be Thavas Lambros. I actually got a chance to interview the player that topped at Division, second place overall for the Spring Cup. His name is Bebop the Sixth. So congrats to you, amigo, on actually getting second place overall. And so one of the cool things with Aqua Force, we're able to use some Stoicheia support. One of the common things that we've been seeing is spiritual body condensation, and that card is really good. So what I'm going to do today is actually cover his deck profile, his experiences, and what his winning image with this deck was, and also some of my highlights and experiences with it as well. And so that'll cover with that too. Also, quick sponsorship note out to Next Level Gaming. And so if you guys are excited for the overdress stuff that's coming out, definitely recommend checking out his shop. He has a lot of shirts for different nations such as Zorga, Magnolia, and many more if you're in different nations. So check it out, and you get a 10% discount if you click on the link below in the description as well. So feel free to check it out and support the channel. So starting out with the winning image. So as I talked to Bebop the Sixth in his interview, he mentioned that he really wanted that early aggression and also keep it up that tempo. And with Aqua Force, most decks are just like that. We have to follow a tempo. Otherwise, we may fall behind and then just kind of lose the game from there. There's not really much to it, right? One of the key things that he used spiritual body condensation, and for those that don't know what the Stoicheia order does, is that you can Soul Blast one, you can actually revive one of your units that is the same grade or less of your Vanguard from your drop zone onto your rear guard. And so that's super big in Aqua Force because we didn't have a way to revive cards from the drop zone. And so this is very helpful, and it also builds consistency. Not only that, but it gives us the flexibility of using cards that we rode with. So key cards in Thavas Lambros, for example, are like Nikki the Grade 1, where you ride it and you get to check the top 7 for a Dennis or a Thavas, but then it also has a unique ability as a rearguard circle. So that may need be used for the rest conditions for Thavas. And so you can use Spiritual Body Condensation on Grade 2 turn, Soul Blast the Nikki, and call it to either behind the Vanguard or another column to give a rearguard a boost at that point. So Bebop the Sixth emphasized that one of the common things he did in early game, he would just call it behind the Vanguard. So that way it just forced more guard if they wanted to guard, otherwise they would just let it through. He wanted to get as much damage through by the time he either went to Grade 3 or went into the Strides turns. And so going first, Thavas Lambros has a really good turn, and so that is a point where we can transition to the main grade 3s with the grade 4 Lambros in main deck too. He's playing 4-3. I recommend this build, especially in Premium 2, this ratio of 3 Lambros, because you're not always going into the Lambros from the main deck per se. And so what it does is that once you have 3 arrested rearguards with Thavas being as your Vanguard, you can actually pseudo-stride into Lambros. Lambros is able to restand all your arrested units, and then you can multi-attack during the battle phase, get basically 5 attacks at that point. And if you can extend from there, you can extend from there as well. And in this case, he will basically get those 5 solid attacks too, and then at the end of the turn, you will re-ride into a Thavas, right? And if you didn't have a grade 3, by Soul Blasting Thavas with Lambros' skill, for example, you could theoretically write down to grade 2 to prevent first strike for your opponent. And so some matchups that may be actually relevant. So you're able to be as aggressive and have the option to try to kill them or put them in a spot where it's really hard for them to come back. Or 2, you maybe do some damage, get some damage in, and then right back to grade 2 if it makes sense. But most of the time, I feel like if you're drawing enough cards, you're able to get a heal trigger. And with that, you can just G-guard and actually go back into GB2, GB3, and really take it from there at that point. Especially if you're playing like Lambros per se, where Lambros actually gives the 10k when you have 2 or more face-up cards in the G-zone. So Lambros becomes full life from the G-zone perspective, and those are wondering, like, can you have more than 4 Lambros technically? And yes, because they're 2 separate deck zones, so you can, as long as they're in the separate deck zones, it's fine. So you could have 4 in the G zone, 4 in the main deck, and that's perfectly legal. So I might as well answer that question. And so with that being said, you know, the first stride is Jumbo typically to an Aqua Force. We are able to provide advantage to. So when he's placed onto Vanguard, you can check the top 7, call 2 units as rested, and then of course when it attacks, you can counter blast, flip something, and then for every 2 cards rested, you can draw a card and retire one of your opponent's rear guards. And then if you drew 3 cards, which meant you had 6 rested rear guards, you can actually stand 2 of your units and then really go from there. So it helps to promote more attacks, or even make those cards that were called rested to be able to attack that turn too. So that's why that's a solid first stride to help them live too, potentially for the next turn. I know there's some decks that are just very, very aggressive. So Jumbo being able to generate advantage, and some of the cards that we have like in the grade 2 slot here, he's playing for Pursuit Assault, where Pursuit Assault is really awesome, and I wish we had him in the English. You can rest 2, Soul Blast 1, and actually draw a card, so that helps generate an advantage too, and also fill in the conditions of the rested units, which actually go in hand with Jumbo too, because Jumbo is going to have to see that number of rearguards. Coral Assault also, as the grade 2 here, 4 copies, is because he's a beater. He looks at for all the units that are rested, and so Thavas is resting actually synergizes with Coral Assault, so it's easily able to be a 24k beater on itself, or maybe a 29k beater on an Excel 2 marker. And because everything is rested, it can theoretically and sometimes actually attack the first or second battle already with the power, because the other units are already rested, right? Just for that nature too. And then with the grade 1s, as you can see, he's playing 3 Orthia for the Penguin as well, alongside with the Nikki's and the Spiritual Body Condensations. And so with Orthia, it's just a phenomenal grade 1 booster, GB1. Kind of blessed and so blessed at the end of the battle that it boosted a rearguard. You can actually restand it in -5k, so that helps you get more attacks, just like with the Riptide Premium deck profile recently did. It's just a great card on restanding beaters, especially if they got triggers, especially if they got criticals, which leads me more into the triggers now. So the other reason, or the other factor that helped to make his deck very aggressive, are the number of critical triggers he has. As you can see, he has 11 plus the over trigger for Stoicheia, so it's in theoretically 12 critical triggers, right? So he's playing the ones that help you with stride costs. Very helpful in Aqua Force. You do not want to pitch to stride much combo pieces or anything like that. That hurts really hell. And then you got the card that goes into Soul, gives the Vanguard 10k. Not as important, but it's nice to have. But as you notice, all of the Sentinels that he has are the critical trigger Sentinels, the 30k shields. And so he has no PGs, no Pascal PG draws, basically. So it's all straight Petros, actually. And so I asked them, you really were focused on just the early game, and so you just wanted to have to see those critical triggers, especially when you're in Lambros as a pseudo strike from the main deck. You can see 3 drive checks, right? And so that helps you with that regard too. And it's just seeing those critical triggers are very impactful, and so you can have a chance of actually winning and sealing the deal there, and so it helps with that. And the Stoicheia over trigger, I really like it overall because it gives you like a front, a heal, a draw, a critical, and you draw as well for the over trigger mechanic on top of that, so you get to dig deeper into your deck. But I feel like this deck being aggressive and also not having as much like defensiveness, like in the terms of like a PG draw, I feel like the over trigger for Stoicheia fits with this. I mean, you can also put the Cray Elemental over trigger just to have another rearguard, but as you can see, there are no restanders outside of like Orpheus just restanding something like one more time. There's no Wheel Salts that can swap the Orpheus to do that one play, but I feel like the Blessed Flavor is the right call in this case. And then as you can see, the rest of the G zone, it's pretty standard. You're seeing 2 Valeos. Valeos is really good too when you don't have to worry about over triggers ruining your turn. So for example, once you have 2 or more face-up cards in the G zone, when Valeos resolves, you can actually lock your opponent at 11k. So if they got it defensively early on, you bring them back down to 11k if they got 100 million from the over trigger, right? Or if they haven't got it yet, even though they damage check it after the fact, they still can raise their Vanguard up to 100 million. They would have to give it to a rearguard if they want to make sense of it, basically, at that point. But Valeos is very key. Not to mention it enables to generate commitment to the field to draw cards back to, so you have a plethora of resources at that point too. And you have other cards like Alexandros and your Lambros. I was interested in seeing Lambros, but I think it's like, if you're always aggressive, you only have so many counterblast available to you at a turn. So I could see why he would go into Lambros potentially. Not to mention now we have an Excel circle to work with, so you can easily make to the 4th battles and take advantage of restanding cards like, Pursuit Assault that gets power for every Excel circles, Coral Assault because he's a beater, and so on, and really take advantage of that. And then you got Penguin Soldier over here that actually can give you those counterblasts during those mid battles, right? It retires itself the 4th battle that it boosted or attack, or when the 4th battle happens, you can just retire it, counter charge. So it helps with that regard too. And then you got the G guards too, and even Sabrice. So if you ever got to that point, you can use Sabrice. I haven't used Sabrice in a long time, but I mean, you can play it at that point, because a lot of the Thavas cards, if you realize, don't use Counterblast. The only card that uses Counterblast really is Orphea, and your strides, really. Yeah. And then, of course, your Lambros pseudo stride, too, from the main deck is the only thing that uses counterblast. So you can technically work with 0 counterblast, and that's the beauty of Pursuit Assault, which we really need in English. But really, I just wanted to show off this deck. You know, it's really cool just to see the consistency boost from Spiritual Body Condensation, not only to help with the early game, but get some key pieces to maybe fulfill those turns much more easier. It's nice to be able to ride Nikki, try to get the benefit of getting a Dennis or a Thavas, and then just soul blasting and reviving it. And then it could actually soul charge back too, so it kind of pays for itself if you think about it that way, and help me with the resting condition for Thavas. You can even grab cards like Dennis to start like resting and generating the field much more easily at that point, or maybe a Pursuit Assault, because Pursuit is just a really great card. And then what's really cool too is that Coral Assault, he even mentioned this, is that he really likes Coral Assault because it always goes into the Assault at the end of the turn. When you have 4 battles or more, you could just Soul Blast it and revive it back and keep using the same Coral Assault if you want to too. So little things like that just like add up over time. And whatever key pieces that you need, Spiritual Body Condensation is almost like that extra copy. We may not be able to tutor within the deck itself, but we're able to reuse some of the resources that have been maybe used up, retired, healed from damage, or soul blasted out if they were soul charged, for example. So that way we still don't miss out on those cards too. And so with that, amigos, I really had fun interviewing with Bebop the Sixth. So if you want to see the actual interview article, you can check down the description below. And also, you know, if you like the video, give it a like, you know, and also comment down below, what are your thoughts with Aqua Force now having Stoicheia support? Like, basically the common thread, the common denominator that we're seeing is really Spiritual Body Compensation, and then of course the Blessed Favorite over trigger at that point too. But I'm sure a lot of you are trying to test out some different variances. I know there's that bear from Magnolia that people are thinking like, if I can make something to get power like Tidal Assault. And you know, there's a lot of ideas. So just for example, and if you like the video, share it with a friend that also likes Aqua Force Premium, or even just Stoicheia stuff and just seeing that in Premium as well. And again, thanks to Vision for having these tournaments online. I know we had a pandemic and everything, and so it's just really great to have some tournaments like these as well, with the Bushiroad one that just passed too. So thanks again to those guys too, working hard at it and making things happen. And so with that, amigos, subscribe. See ya. Bye.